In this video, I will be showing you how you could create a number counter in Scratch. It has a nice size effect and it can also be centered. So let's start. So first, let's create a new sprite calling it number counter. And now let's start creating our digits. So first, in the first costume, just type 1 right over here. Make the color black and then just make it slightly more bigger, something like this. And then I'll change the font to this. And then I'm also going to give it an outline so it looks much more better, and make sure to center your digits. After that, just rename your costume to the digit. So this is 1, I'm going to rename it to 1. Now duplicate it and then change this 1 to 2, and then do the same thing for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, and after that duplicate 9 and then make this costume name to 0 and then this 9 to 0, and those are our digits. Now let's create two new variables, one called number, which is basically our number displayed on the counter, and another one called update, which just refreshes the counter. Then let's do when green flag click. Let's set the number to something like 123, and then let's do a forever loop, and then let's check. If not, update is equal to number. Let's just broadcast a new message called refresh digits, and then when we receive that refresh digits message, let's just delete this clone. So this basically refreshes our digit, and then after that, before this forever loop, let's just set this update to number plus 1, and below the refresh digits, let's just set the update to number. Now let's create a new block and let's give it some parameters. So first, let's just start off with number counter, and then the first parameter will be number, and then let's add an input called number, and then a new label for the x and an input for the x, a label for the y, an input for the y, a label for the spacing between the digits, then an input for the spacing as well, and then another label for the size, an input for the size, and then a last label to which asks the user whether to center the counter or not. Let's add an input called center yes slash no, and then let's just run this without screen refresh, and then let's place this block just above the set update variable. So in this number input, let's just add this number variable, then the x, let it be 0, the y, let it be 0, the spacing, let's set it to something like 50, then the size, I'm going to set it to 100, and then the centered, I'll just put it as a lowercase y, which means yes. And now one more thing that you need to do is put the hide block under this when green flag click. Just basically hides the actual sprite because we are using clones. Now let's create a new variable called num length. Make sure it's for this sprite only. Let's set this num length to length of number, and then now let's do the centering part. So let's just first check if we want it to be centered or not. So if centered yes or no is equal to yes, and then so first let's do an if else statement, and then first let's check if it's odd. So we'll do if num length mod 2 is equal to 1, this means the number is odd. So if the number is odd, let's just go to x, then y, and then let's do repeat. Let's take a division symbol here, a minus sign here, and then let's do num length minus 1 divided by 2. After that, let's just change x by spacing into minus 1. And then if the number is even, let's just duplicate this. We'll go to x, y, and then let's just remove this minus sign. So repeat num length divided by 2, change spacing into minus 1 divided by 2 here, and then in the else statement of this centered y slash n, let's just go to x, and then y. which means we don't want it to be centered. It's just this. Now the remaining part of the number counter is easy to do. So first what we'll need to do is we'll need to create a new variable called id for this sprite only, and then another new variable called base size, which is useful for the size effect. So let's set the id to 0 and then the base size to size. And then let's do repeat num length, and then let's change the id by 1, and then let's switch costume to letter id of number. And then after that, let's just create a clone of myself, and then let's change x by spacing. So what this does is that each digit has its own identity, and this script basically creates all those digits. And now after this, let's just do, when I start as a clone, let's just change size to something like 50, and then let's do a forever loop, and then let's change let's just change our size to base size minus the actual size divided by 2, which gives this a size effect. So this algorithm can be used to smooth things. And then before this forever loop, let's just show. Let's do the show before the change size by 50, otherwise the effect won't be seen. And now for the variables, let's hide all the variables except the number one, and let's change this number variable to slider. Now as you can see, our number 1 2 3 is getting displayed, and we're having a nice centered number counter. And that's how to create a number counter in Scratch. You can use this number counter for projects such as games or something like that. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.